So here we are at the Temple of Luxor, and I'm not going to start the temple first. I'm going to start here at what they call the Avenue of the Sphinxes. This is 3 kilometers worth of straight land that goes from the Temple of Karnak right over to the Temple of Luxor, where we are right now. And it is the place where they would have this ceremonial bark, the ship that we see kind of portrayed out there, just in the center. Let's see if I can scroll there a little bit. There it is, and I'm pretty shaky. And it would process the god Amun from the Temple of Karnak all the way down to the Temple of Luxor, this one right here. And this is sort of one of the most amazing pieces. It started off way back with Hatshepsut and even before, and then became the domain of, it was built on by Thutmose III, and then Tutankhamun, and then finally Ramses, who is the person we see here. These 6 giant colossal figures, only 3 of which are original, 3 of which have been reconstructed, and there used to be 2 obelisks. Right? 2 giant statues like this. And they were these massive pieces. Now, there's only one left. The other one is actually down in France in the Colonna in a museum there. But this one is right here. So we're going to head on in. We're going to take a break just for a moment. And I want to do a very brief look at the list of who we've got and what they are. And I have got 1,000 flies that absolutely love my phone. So here we are with our list of our kings and queens. I'll be back in just a second. So there we are, our original Hatshepsut builder, all the way down to Nectanebo, which I'm hoping I'm saying right, who was the very last of the pharaohs. That's the list of the kings and queens, or pharaohs that were there. And this is what they created. Now, as we go, we're going to go back in time. This is starting from Ramses, which was one of the last kings to build. We're going to go all the way back to Hatshepsut's temple, which is mostly gone. So really we're looking at Thutmose III's pieces there. Now, like I said, there used to be 2 of these, 2 obelisks going all the way up. One over on this side, one over on that side, but the other one is gone. Went off to the museum in France. Now, one of the things I found interesting about this is that the Egyptians actually used illusionism to do this. The obelisks weren't the same height. They were 2 different heights, but the walls were also slightly different heights, so that they had the appearance of looking the same. Now, it's going to be really tough to see in the video, I'm guessing, but all along there, we're going to see all these depictions of Ramses and his victory over the Hittites, which he did through the Battle of Kadesh. And we're going to keep on walking. We're going to stroll on down. I think it's just going to be us walking for a fair bit and checking it out. I love the depiction, the pieces on the pillars. These are what we call lotus-topped pillars, because they look like the buds of a lotus plant at the very top. You'll also notice that we have partial pillars. They've been filled in, put back together. Can you imagine being the archaeologist who has to put together this giant puzzle? Here is our forecourt that we have from Ramses II. It's just an amazing piece. I love the fact that it's quiet around here. Like I said before, once a year, in the 2nd month of the year, the image, the statue of Amun-Ra would come back all the way down the Avenue of the Sphinxes, behind us. Let's go back to just take a very quick look at it. All the way down 3 kilometers in his ceremonial bark into here. Now here we have Ramses' 3 shrines, 3 temples. One for Amun here in the center, the creator god, the supreme god. One for his wife, Mut, over here. We'll just take a very quick look. And of course our third one, the first one that we passed, was the shrine to Khonsu, or Khansa, the god of the moon and the night. And his is in there, and the 3 of them would all be depicted there. There's not much of it left. It's been pretty well taken out, but it is still kind of significant in terms of the process. We'll walk in past our depictions of Ramses in his various states. He was very big on making pictures and depictions of himself. I'm just gonna say. Maybe we'll take a little bit of a look through there later, but we want to get to the end, to the oldest part, to the sanctuary of sanctuaries. These columns are absolutely massive. I don't know if it's easier enough to see. Here we've got Amun and Mut, the gods and goddesses, and the sun Khonsu, or at least a part thereof. On the other side, and I hope I'm not going too quickly, we have Tutankhamun and his wife. Right, so this is really the start of Tutankhamun's building, or at least this is where they placed the statues, because these massive columns were started by Amenhotep III, finished off by Tutankhamun. This is called the Great Colonnade Hall. Let's just take a very brief look here. I'll set this here and I'll pause it just for a second so that you can pause and read if you want. And then we'll continue on. As you can notice, a lot of these places, all along the bases, we're looking at the bits and pieces of what's left over or reconstructions, filling in the pieces with cement. And let's just pull over here for a second. One of the things that they tend to do is they put the pieces together and then they will sit there and draw in what should be there. So this is just to give the viewer a little bit of a better idea of what the picture would be. So I think it's rather interesting. And it's not obviously not done for all of it or even most of it, but some of it is pretty well done. Okay. And yes, you get the grand walk all the way down into our inner colonnade. Our smaller one, Amenhotep's pillars. Now, one of the things that are really, really cool is late at night they light this whole place up. And it looks absolutely otherworldly. It's an amazing piece. And you can wander through in the lights and check out exactly what it looks like. It just brings a whole other atmosphere, a whole other vibe to the whole process. Now, beforehand, at one point in time, this was fronted by a ceiling. However, that's long since collapsed, and all we have left are the columns. Assalamu alaikum. Canada. Always Canada dry. Alright, so yeah, I'm just going to stop just very briefly here. Still with elements of color, still with elements of the styles of them, but just looking at these massive pillars all done to look like papyrus reeds with lotus on top. Now this last part is a little bit more interesting. We're getting into the main temple, the actual sanctuary. However, this was taken over by the Romans, and it was created and turned into a Christian church. I'm going to stop that right there for a second, just in case you want to pause, and then we'll move on. So, oh, we should pop up just the Cachette Find Spot. We'll talk about that in a second. The Cachette Find Spot. That's number 3. That's over behind us. And this was one of the original temples. So we can see over here the pharaoh and all the pieces, right? Standard traditional Egyptian drawings. But up here, for example, right, if you look in that corner, you can see what is very much something that could be sort of, I don't know, that might be the Last Supper up in the corner, but it's a whole bunch of Christian pieces of artwork. What they did when they did this is they took the old piece and they plastered over it and then painted it with Christian motifs. So we'll take a look. Even if you look right here, there's our God on the one side, and then it goes straight on into this motif section. This Christian church, when the Romans took over, Christianity became state religion, and all of a sudden Amun was gone, and it was time for the Christians to take over. Now this was actually rather advantageous, because as much as this is now covered over with all sorts of Christian stuff, the plaster had the effect of preserving all of the pieces underneath, which would have been, all the paint would have disappeared, that would have been eroded off by the sun and the sand and all the rest of that kind of stuff. So here we are along the inside. You can tell the beautiful color still there, still vestiges of the color left over, all the pictures still remaining. You can see all the motifs here. If we can take a look just to the left, we've got the ceremonial bark, the ceremonial boat being carried along. Now that would be carrying the images or the statues of the gods down their way towards this, because once a year, as I said, he would come down and reunite with his wife, have himself a good time, and then beyond, of course, beyond display for all the people to see, because the Avenue of the Sphinxes would be lined by thousands of people watching the god go by. There's another one of the boats, and there's the third one right over here. All right. This particular piece happened once a year and was quite important to the people. And we're just going to take a quick walk. As we go back, it's going to become less colorful, less ostentatious, I guess, until we finally make our way into the inner sanctum, which, to be honest, isn't all that much. Out here we have the open air museum, which is basically a collection of all the stones and rocks that they found that have something on them, so that in the hopes that one day they can piece them all back together. But if we were to come back here, we would be in the absolute heart of it all. This is the oldest section that we have left. Like we said, Hatshepsut's piece was gone, and so this is Amenhotep's inner sanctum. This is where the statue of the gods would be. And this is where it would reside, right here in this center section. Let me back up a bit. After its long procession from the Temple of Karnak. So anyways, we're going to leave you at that. I'm going to pause this, and then we're going to head back to the middle so that I can tell you one other thing that I think might be kind of interesting. All right, so here we are. We're back again. I've gone all the way back to these two big statues, been to the Ramses section, and our piece is here. Now, one of the things I want to point out is this mosque way up here. This building here is a mosque, and it is the mosque of a local saint, actually. The one who, as far as we could tell, or who is attributed to introducing Islam to Egypt. So he's a bit of a big deal. And one of the things I do want to point out is the mosque itself. It's this piece right over here, this little place, because that, the two windows, the big square, that was the front door. It was the front door because at one point in time, all of this was filled up with silt and sand. So the floor of this place was actually the bottom of that square, the bottom of that door. And it took them a whole lot of excavating, and it was really interesting because what that means is that everything from that line, and I'm just going to see if I can go across, you can picture that line would have meant that only the tallest of those columns would have been above ground. And maybe, and it was interesting, you'll notice that in a lot of Egyptian sculptures, the heads are missing. Now, this is not due to anything nasty. It's not because they intentionally tried to destroy things around Egypt. But for this place, for example, the heads were missing because they were the only pieces. As you went along the sands and the dunes, the only thing you would ever see were the tops of these heads. And so it'd be nice and easy to smash off or crack off or kick or do whatever and take this really hard stone. There's some really hard stone, sandstone from Sila Sajareba, the place up north, Nubian stone, which is a lot harder, a lot denser, a lot better building material. So you crack the head off and it'd make a really good piece of stone for you to use. So all of this stuff used to be underneath the sands, preserved for hundreds of years as the centuries went by, until finally we figured out that it was all here and we decided to excavate it. However, not everything survived, not everything made its way through, but it is just an interesting piece of history.
Thank you.
And I think I'm going to leave you with that. Have yourself a great time, and we will catch you later.